All right, have we been enjoying the festival as it is on the internet, which is cool? Never done this before? Yeah, totally. Everything is different in the future. All right, I'm going to give this a few minutes to see who shows up. Oh, we've got some familiar faces. That's good. Let's see, it's 3:54. This is Handsome. He is my co-teacher. As you can see, he is very handsome. He totally assists in curse removal because he's cute. And, demons, man, they run away from that. They can't stand cute. And then there's a cat around here somewhere. Her name is the Duchess because she is the Duchess. He's the court jester. Or at least she treats him like one. So I hope everybody can hear me and that you are all here and will be entertained on a subject that comes up a lot in terms of like pagan practice and witchcraft and spell work. And as a professional witch, I had a shop here in Albany Park in Chicago, and every other day somebody would come into the shop and say, I think I'm cursed. And I was always like, you probably aren't, but we'll check it out. All right, to start off with, Pagan Pride is a charity, and we are all doing this for free, but putting this stuff on is not free. So if you guys could throw some money at the organization, that would be great. I know there are PayPal links all over the place. I don't know where they are, but if you just start clicking on stuff, you're going to find it. So if you have the ability to do that, then you should. So my name is Megan Hamilton, and I am the co-owner of World Tree Healing here in Chicago in Albany Park. We closed in March because of the plague upon the land, and we're hoping to reopen in the spring. And we're going to play that by ear because it just who knows what's going to actually happen. To give you an idea of me, I have been a practicing witch since I was a teenager. I'm 35 now, so it's going on like 20 years or more. I read tarot cards and I do energy healings. I do spiritual counseling, house cleansings, all kinds of things. I used to make products and then I kind of got burnt out on that, and I haven't made anything in a while because, geez, that when you're doing stuff with magic and you're putting your energy into it, you could get very tired very quickly. So you just gotta, if you do that, do it smart. So I am a priestess of the goddess Freya. She is a goddess in the Norse pantheon, and that's like Scandinavia, like Iceland, Finland, Denmark, Sweden, Norway. I've been a priestess, and in the Norse tradition, which is traditionally called a Seithkona, which in Old Norse basically just means witch, person who just like walks between the worlds, healer. There's a variety of definitions to that word. All right, so if anybody has questions, I have the chat thing up right here and I can see it. And I like questions because that definitely helps me focus stuff a little bit better. Because I am one of those people who write an outline or stick to an outline. I kind of just sit down and I just start talking. So, yay, no structure. This is going to be great. So in my time as a professional witch, I have had an enormous amount of people, like I can't even count how many people, who have come to me thinking that they were cursed. And 9 times out of 10, they were not. So being cursed actually looks like, and when it's probably something else, like you're just traumatized, like you have PTSD, like you just have like severe anxiety, or you're so deep into your depression that it looks like it feels like you're cursed. Hold on one moment. I don't have the Rona. I have chronic strep throat. Whole other separate disease. So if I stop to cough, that's because my throat is being an asshole. Also, there's going to be swearing in this, so if you're not into that, then there are other workshops going on now that are very interesting. Also, please keep your mics on mute. Just as a general FYI about me, I am autistic, and if I hear stuff, it's very easy for me to lose track of what I'm saying. Or if somebody tries to say something and I'm saying something, then there's like a feedback loop because of the microphones. So then it's difficult to understand what's going on. So just to give you that heads up. And also, because I am autistic, if it sounds like I'm speaking in absolutes, I don't mean to be sounding like that. I absolutely understand the difference between like, what's real and what's not real. And if you think I'm like speaking definitively, like this is the absolute truth, that's just my tone. And it's really, really difficult for me to regulate my tone of voice. So I am not speaking in absolutes. I am speaking only from my personal experience. And I do not in any way, shape, or form believe that my experience is the end all be all of existence, because it isn't. This is just what I have seen and what I have figured out for myself. So to get started, curses. What is a curse? So the vast majority of the time, the people who are throwing curses and then having them land as curses, most of these people are not trained witches, they're not trained wizards, they're not trained magicians. These are merely people who are projecting their own feelings at you, or just in general, and then it just gets stuck onto you. Like this person could just be mad, and their energy just projects so hard that it gets on your system, it gets onto your energy body, it gets into your aura, and it seeps into your energy centers. Sometimes you call those chakras, you call them whatever you want. But there are just like different energy centers throughout the human body. Like you have the human body, you have the soul, and you have the spirit, where the spirit and the human body like overlap. That's where your soul is. Of that soul. And all traditions across the world go about that differently. And all of those are the truth for those people. So I'm going to try to be as general, because I don't know how knowledgeable all of you are. So I'm going to try to be as like beginner friendly as possible. So curses, by and large, the vast majority of them are projected anger, projected resentment, projected jealousy, like the evil eye. The vast majority of people are not doing that per se on purpose. They're not like, gathering energy in their hands and then throwing it at you like a baseball. Most of them are not doing that. They're just mad. And they just want to take you down a peg because they have issues. One of the ways to protect yourself from that is just a basic shielding, basic cleansing, basic meditation to just cleanse your aura and your system from just the effects of being out in the world, or just being in a dysfunctional family, being in a dysfunctional work environment, being in any kind of dysfunctional situation. I used to go to Al-Anon meetings because I come from an alcoholic family, and just being around those women, it was mostly women, not always, but these weren't bad people, but they had a lot of stuff coming off of them, and that wasn't their fault. And so I would leave these meetings feeling better because I had talked about some stuff, but I still had the gunk and the grime on me, and I had to cleanse myself, because if I didn't, then depending on the day, depending how vulnerable I was, it could get deeper into my system, and I would experience things like clumsiness. I am not a clumsy person, despite the autism. I'm actually quite graceful. But one of the ways that I know that something is going on is when stuff that doesn't normally happen start to happen. I'm not clumsy, and if I start dropping stuff, if I break a nail, I never break a nail. My nails are very strong. If I start walking into doorways, if I stub my foot, if I trip and fall, if then there's usually something in my system that is cogging up the wheels. Just there's something clogged. To do that cleansing, but since this is a class on curse removal, we're not going to get into that. That's a whole other separate class, and I only have an hour and a half. So a lot of the time, it's just projected bad feelings. And one of the ways to deal with that is basic shielding, basic cleansing, and also practicing boundaries. If you know who is doing that, then it is up to you to not change them, because you can't, but to protect yourself, and practicing saying no. If you're going into a situation this is a dysfunctional family member, that these people take more from you than they give back, and you leave feeling drained, and all of these things, you do have to practice taking yourself out of that situation and putting up better boundaries, and learning just to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay. And a lot of people don't like that, because then they don't get what they want, and that's on them. So one of the ways to defend yourself against something manifesting in your system as a smaller on the scale, not benign curse, but just smaller scale curse, is just practicing shielding, cleansing, and boundaries, actual physical, verbal boundaries. I highly recommend looking into the self-help books about dealing with toxic family situations. If you come from a family of addiction, mental illness, disability, any kind of emotional neglect, to look into books like that break down these things and explain them, because that gives you a better understanding of your own humanity and how you were raised. That helps so much in understanding how these things happen. But I find that with people who are naturally spiritual, they're more sensitive to these things. There's a lot of people walking around where they're bricks. They don't pick up on any of this, and they have no idea why their life is like that. That's their life. That's okay. But the people who are more on the spiritual side, as we practice spell work and witchcraft and stuff, we are more susceptible to things like these, because we just have an awareness of it. And as our awareness of energy and spirituality and ourselves increases, we become more sensitive to the things around us. And when we become more sensitive to these things, as we understand and learn and grow, then we have to be more vigilant about protecting ourselves from these things. So that's for those projected feelings, projected stuff, that people don't really know that they're doing that. And if they do know that they're doing that, you don't want to be around those people. You just really, really don't. They're not worth it. And if you're in a family with them, you're dependent on them, you're married to them, make an escape plan, because those things, it's really super unfair. It really is, that the people who are on the receiving end of abuse have to be the ones to change, because the other people aren't going to. I mean, that's what I've learned in my personal life. I have a degree in women's studies. I have domestic violence counseling training, and it's so profoundly not fair, but you do have to protect yourself. You have to be the one to make these changes, because the other person is not going to. So that is this end of it. And the vast majority of people who would come to see me at the shop, that was the majority of. Julia, turn off your mic. Come on, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Come on, I already gave out that warning.
I have a tea party. Hold on.
Okay, so then that was the benign stuff. That was the not so big stuff, but like the people who came to see me, they were terrified because they thought like, or one of their friends or family, like a secret witch, and they whole ritual around cursing them or something, or making their lives horrible. Not necessarily. It just something else got in there, and so now we have to deal with it. So then the next step up from like, if you can't get that to get off of you through cleansing, through banishing, through shielding and basic boundaries, if there's something still that feels like it's going on, then the next step is then we have to go within ourselves. Oh my God. I hope you're okay, Julia. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with like meditation, but we can do just a very basic guided meditation for determining if there is something bigger going on, if a general cleansing, like taking a salt bath, smudging yourself with something, if that doesn't work, then the next step up is to do a meditation. So the thing that I like to focus on with removing curses, and this is my biggest secret, it's not really secret, but this is just what I figured out when it comes to curses or something that landed on you and it's manifested in curse-like ways, even if like a professionally trained witch did not like do a whole ritual and throw something at you. The vast majority of the time, that is not what they're doing. Like you really have to piss somebody off in order for them to do that. And we're going to get into that later. But for like the stuff that, has been there for a while and you haven't been able to like cleanse it away, you haven't been able to, just deal with it. When curses land, the only way for them to land is if there is a vulnerability. And that is one of the things I figured out many, many years ago. Because when I was working on people and I was seeing where a lot of this projected anger, jealousy, rage, envy, all like that evil eye stuff, where I found it in somebody's system, there was already a wound there. People were already wounded. They were already insecure about something. They were already traumatized by something. They were already suffering from the effects of anxiety or depression or PTSD or something like that. So then one of the ways that I figured out how to remove that energy, to remove that curse, to remove that projected bullshit from that person's system was to help my client go through and figure out what this vulnerability was. And that usually meant processing and experiencing and then letting go of that original pain, because that's what the curse had attached itself to. And then whatever that wound was, because a lot of the time it looked like it was just a festering blister. It looked like an open wound in someone's system. I'm just going to move my thing here. So once I was able to like deal with that and get like the gangrene out and get the infection out by helping the client process that original wound, then what was left was healthy tissue, or the healthy energy of the system. And so I would just fill it in with like Reiki, fill it in with like healing energy, bandage it, and then tell the client like you need to take care of that spot. Going through like the chakra system, because that is what I'm mostly trained in. But that has evolved over time. But yeah, like the root system had to do with like, your physical way of dealing in the world or being in the world. And then above that was like the sexual stuff and the sensual, the creative parts of us. And then above that was our power center. And then above that is our heart and our love center. Above that is our voice and our ability to speak truth and also to lie. Then above that was, the intuition and, like seeing things for what they were and what they are rather than what you want them to be. And then you have the crown, which is the connection to spirit. And the root is also the connection to the earth. So all of these things have different points of vulnerability depending on who you are. Like your strengths and your weaknesses are quite often the same thing. So then if, you get wounded in your heart area because you got a broken heart and somebody was jealous about what you had, then it can get deeper into your heart energy center and can just wreak havoc on your feelings and your sense of self and your ability to connect with other people and also to get a new relationship that's ultimately hopefully better. So in order to remove that curse, to remove that, we had to deal with the vulnerability. What was it that made you vulnerable? What was it that hurt you? Where did you get hurt? And a lot of those things were rooted in childhood, abandonment issues, abuse issues, death issues. Abandonment issues and death issues are basically the same thing. Like if somebody died that you were counting on when you were a child, then you were basically abandoned. And since you were a child, you didn't know. None of us know. We don't know what we're doing when we're babies. So when we're that small, we don't have any ability to protect ourselves. We are completely vulnerable to the people that we're surrounded by. And, one of the things that I learned for myself is that the vast majority of people in our families are not trained social workers. They don't know what to do. They have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea that they were horribly traumatizing their children. Most of our parents, the vast majority of them, did have good intentions, and they just simply failed at protecting you because this is the world that we live in. And I wish it was different, but as adults, we have to deal with the ramifications of those things. Like none of this was your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. And one of the ways to go about that is to seek out a competent therapist, see your friendly neighborhood witch. One of the things that helps a lot in dealing with stuff like this and these kinds of vulnerabilities is just to talk to someone who does care about you. They don't need to be a therapist. They just need to be non-judgmental and they need to care about you. Having somebody who will listen and then will be able to I understand that really sucks and not try to fix it. Those people in your life, they are gold. Hold on to them. So dealing with vulnerabilities, that's where curses land. That's how they get in. Is it that it hits some vulnerable part of you? Because I've been doing this since I was a teenager. I've had a lot of curses. So once you deal with the vulnerability, and it's not a vulnerability anymore, it's just like scar tissue. It's like a brick wall. And so somebody could throw something similar and it'll bounce right off. They could do the most elaborate ritual and throw it at you. And if you have already dealt with that vulnerability, then it's not going to hit. It'll just fall to the floor. And a general cleansing will get rid of it most of the time, not all the time. But in my experience, because I don't know what level any of you are at. Also, if you have any questions about this or you want my help in clearing something up and I said something that does not make any sense, please write it in the chat here and I am more than willing to answer those questions because that stuff is fascinating. I am so fascinated by this stuff. And sometimes when you ask a question, the answer just comes from spirit. It's like in heathenry we call it UPG, unverified personal gnosis, and sometimes I don't know the answer to something until someone asks. So questions are amazing. Please do if you have them. Or if you can't hear me, please let me know. So vulnerabilities. That is the main way that curses get in. And the way they also just the way that they land. Then dealing with those vulnerabilities, processing that trauma, and dealing with that stuff. That is the main way to deal with a curse and to like be able to like let it go. Because the other part is there's a lot of spell work that goes into like return to sender. And I have my opinions on that, and they are mine and mine alone. But return to sender can only really like do so much, because if it's already hit, then you're basically just copying and pasting and then sending it back. And so what you've sent back to somebody from what they threw at you isn't going to hit them in the same way that it hit you. And also, I'm not one of those people who's like the threefold law because I'm pagan, heathen, and we don't have that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing or that it isn't true. It's just, that's not our way. So whatever you do will come back to you 3 times. Like, that's not in my personal belief system. And if it's in your personal belief system, that's fine. So don't misunderstand. So I'm not against people doing return to sender. I don't think that makes you a bad person. I don't think that means that, you threw a curse or some bullshit like that. That's not what that is. I'm just saying I don't think they're that effective. Because unless you are walking around with like mirror shields all the time and everything's just bouncing off of you because you're really, really good at that, cool. Most of us aren't. I'm certainly not. So somebody throws something at you, it hits. You know that it hit, and then you do a return to sender spell. You're doing a copy and paste. You are just making a copy. It will not have the same like energy behind it. It just doesn't. You still have something within you. That return to sender does not peel away the vulnerability that thing hit. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? I hope you do. Like, I hope I'm making this clear that return to sender, like you'll send something back. Something definitely does get back. But that's the other thing with like throwing curses that I have found with people. Some of the curses that were sent to me were extremely specific. Were extremely specific in a way that it made more sense to the person who was sending it than for who I am as a person. What I mean by that is you can totally be looking at somebody and you may think you know what their vulnerability is. You may think like, I want to hit this person right where it hurts. And this is what I think will hurt. And so you will be very, very specific in what you're throwing at somebody. But I've seen this on so many occasions. 9 times out of 10, what you're throwing stuff at is actually their greatest strength. So a lot of the time when someone was throwing a curse at me, they were trying to take me down a peg. But one of my greatest strengths is the knowledge of who I am, because I've been through some crazy shit. And I'm also like ridiculously autistic. So to try to like convince me I am not myself or to take me down a peg or whatever, like that, it didn't do what they thought it would. And it was really like comical in some ways. The stuff that hit, like there was still like a slime on my aura space, and I could pull it up and get a readout of the schematics of what was sent to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, I dealt with that years ago. Like that's very interesting. And then cleansed it away, found who did that, pulled out whatever tether I had to them, pulled out whatever I could that they had a handle on. Like sometimes they had my hair. And so then I would just unhook myself from that piece of my hair. That's an advanced thing, so don't try that at home. That takes a long time to learn how to do. So I would just unhook like whatever connection I had to them, and that was it. Like I didn't need to retaliate because this person just fundamentally did not understand what they were doing. They were just mad. And instead of, I don't know, talking to me about it, or I don't know, just yelling at me about it, or writing me a bad Google review or something, which a few people did. I prefer that over curses. Like I could deal with those much better. Or if I hurt somebody, and there's plenty, like I've made mistakes. We've all made mistakes. There is some shit that I've done that I am not proud of. But then your response to it is to like try to crush my entire existence. You will always fail at that. That will always fail. Because if your idea of a person and their strengths or weaknesses, you will always be wrong. Every single time. The ones that actually do work are the open-ended ones. The ones where you're just like, you know what? Fuck this person. Those ones are the hardest to deal with. Because if it's open-ended, there's no ego in it. It's just like a little machine that's there to fuck up your life. And it will fuck it up in any way that it can. So the ones that are super specific, those are easy to deal with because that person is just angry and they're projecting and they don't really know where to put it. And I understand that from like being raised in a dysfunctional family. That stuff sucks. It really does. But for the people who actually do know what they're doing and they have like an idea of justice because you actually have done something, those ones are the toughest. Those are the most difficult to break. And they're also the most expensive on the part of the client. I've had so many men, like heterosexual cis men, come to me because some woman cursed them because that man did something horrible to them. And dealing with those clients were always very difficult because I had to have like a, you know, pardon the phrase here, a come to Jesus moment with them, because it's like you need to take responsibility for what you've done to this person. Otherwise, this isn't going to come off because it's attached to justice. It's not, this isn't anger, this isn't rage, this isn't disappointment, this isn't jealousy, this isn't anything. It's not even vengeance, it's justice. So what is happening to you is totally in line with what you have done to them. So the way to get that off is to fundamentally change who you are and to not do anything like that again, and then to make up for it and pay your debt. So that is the crash course in like curses and stuff. I'm not going to teach any of you how to do it. Like whole other class, and I'm not going to be responsible for that kind of thing. But dealing with your own projections, like, are you sending that stuff out? That's another thing with shielding. Like, are you throwing stuff out and it's bouncing off of people, and then they're talking to you in like a not so great way afterward because you accidentally said something out? Shielding can go both ways. There is such a thing as an empathic projector. It's not always the case where the empathic person is constantly on the receiving end. You can totally send that out without even realizing it. So the shielding can go both ways. You could totally like contain yourself. Handsome agrees. Totally like try to keep a lid on that as much as possible while you work through your own issues. Because if there's anything that I've learned about magic, the only way to really get better at this is to become not so much like a better person, but to understand yourself better, to understand your trauma better, to understand your strengths and weaknesses better. If you know who you are, that is your best defense. More than anything, that is your best defense against whatever anybody could send at you. Or that is also your best strength in throwing stuff. If you know who you are, then for like defensive magic and stuff like that. Because yeah, witch battles, those are fun. All right, so I would love some questions or feedback or anything. Like, you guys are kind of quiet. There's 15 people in this room. I would love to get to know you. And has anything I said resonated? Let's get some discussion. Because if we were in person, I would be asking you guys questions. Like, so what's going on? Why are you here? because this is a really deep, difficult subject. Like, this is not for the faint of heart. Like, this is difficult in a lot of ways. Yes, trauma and being cursed. Thank you. Trauma, most of the time, it's a lot of that stuff is internal to you. A lot of that stuff is like, your basic psychological, self-sabotage, your basic stuff. Where it's not like the world is trying to get you, even though I know sometimes in that's cool. Thank you, Amy. So I know, like, in the midst of mental illness, it can totally feel like the world is out to get you. And also in the pagan community, it is part of our spiritual tradition to be working with entities, to be talking to things that are clearly not there. So sometimes it's really hard to separate those. But one of the ways that I have learned for myself to know, like, I set this up in my own system, is that the things that don't normally happen, like, I'm not a clumsy person. I'm just not. I don't have bruises all over my body from bumping into things. I'm just not clumsy. So it's the things that don't really have that much of a history of happening. It's the stuff that's going out of its way to get you. That's the stuff that that usually, like, you can tell between, like, a trauma and a curse. Like the stuff that's unusual, like, also for, like, the ridiculous, stuff that's going on, like your house is haunted, or, like, things just like flying through the air, like that is totally a thing that can happen. Like, that's probably not you being crazy if the thing that was, not broken is now broken and there was no way anything happened. And so you need to call your friendly neighborhood witch to come and help you deal with that if you don't have the training to deal with it. I hope that answered that question, because really just knowing yourself is your best defense, and getting to know yourself and dealing with those traumas and dealing with those triggers. Because I'm also someone that I do not try to, like, shield myself from being triggered, because that's the only way I know where the vulnerabilities are. And if I don't know where the vulnerabilities are and something just gets in here and it makes something explode and I'm in public and then having a meltdown, then I don't really want to do that. So I openly embrace being triggered, but that's me. And if you're not in a place to do that, then don't do that. But that's me, because I want to know where the bombs are, because I have no other way of knowing where the bombs are unless, the bombs go off. In addition to therapy, Alice asks, in healing trauma, what magical steps can we use? Basic protection spells, draw on your ancestors. And by ancestors, I don't mean just open the barn door to all of your ancestors. I mean, like, the people who actually care about you. Specify it for the people who care, for the ancestors that, like, aren't out to get you. Because there's a few that I have dealt with just in my own personal life and with clients, where just these particular ancestors who are like, you are not living your life the way you should be, because they're from a completely different generation. They don't understand that the world has changed. Am I holding workshops? I haven't really done a whole lot since, the shutdown since March. I can, but it's like, it's a lot of work that my brain just doesn't go and do this. I'm only doing this workshop because Twyla did all of the work to put it together. Okay. You can, if you want to, like, have me do, if you guys want to do, like, one-on-one stuff, or have me do stuff for a group, and we can do that over Zoom or Google Hangouts, then email worldtreeoffice@gmail.com. I'm going to put that in the thing here. So email us at that email address, and then that can work. But anyway, protection, your basic protection spells, your basic house spells, like putting salt in all of the corners of your home, And like every time you clean, redo that. Every time you clean your house, every time you vacuum, anytime you sweep, anytime you do, like, you change the bed sheets, re-up that. Because the other thing about spells is that it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. The spells have a battery life. If you send out a spell, that's eventually going to expire. So then for the stuff that you want to like stick around, you either need to give that a good sized battery pack, or you need to constantly re-up it. Now, how to do beyond this class. The other thing is to like if you have a black crystal and a white crystal, and I mean like for like white, I mean like selenite or quartz. Tended curses, what does that mean? Talk about tended curses. I don't know what tended means unless that was a misprint or something. But like having black and white stones in parts of your home, like the place where you sleep, I would recommend keeping a black and white stone, like a positive, negative, like it needs to be a balanced charge. And have that by your bedside and cleanse that. Do not just put those there. Like I have a lot of people who will just buy crystals from my shop, set it up somewhere, and then never cleanse them. You have got to clean them the way you clean everything else. You take a shower every day, you clean your house, once a week, hopefully. Yeah, but depression is a thing. But like you wash your dishes, like it's the same thing with your crystals. It's the same thing with your spells. It's the same thing with all of these other things. Cleansing your crystals, cleansing your home. You can use mugwort. You can use like different forms of sage. Hopefully you got that sage from like a Native American tribe who are selling it. Like a white sage is a Native American tradition, and a lot of those traditions are closed. So if you buy it from them directly, that's much better. But mugwort is European, and that's from an open spirituality. Mugwort will do the same thing that white sage does. It will cleanse a space. Tended curses that continue through the generations of your family. Oh my God. So ancestral curses, that's a fun one. So ancestral curses, the vast majority of the time, those started out as protection spells. Those started out as protection. And the vast majority of them are made by women on their daughters because we live in a hellscape. So a lot of those protection spells are like, don't let anything bad happen to this child, or, keep all of these things away. And then I just tried to say three things at once. So depending on how strong that ancestor was and who they were praying to, be it a Catholic saint or, like the entity that lives in the backyard, or, their own personal thing that they had going on, whether they were consciously aware of it or not. If it's witnessed by that entity, then too. But ancestral trauma is totally a thing, and it is a bitch to deal with because it affects not just you, but your extended family. But that brings me to a really good really good point in my own family on my grandmother's side. On my grandmother's side of the family, there is no divorce. There are no children out of wedlock. There are like no affairs. And this is like 30 people on that side of the family who are married, and the only way out is through death. And that was something that I was recently just dealing with because it affects so many people. And I have a few cousins who are clearly in unhappy marriages and they have no way out. Because I talked to a cousin of mine and I'm like, why don't you just divorce this asshole? And she got like a glazed look on her face and she's like, why would I ever do that? And then my suspicion had been confirmed, like there was like something going on. And it had just turned out that a female ancestor had just put on like a really, really strong protection spell that manifested into a curse. So one of the things that I do, if I'm working with someone, I'm working with a client, I find the ancestor that did this. I do not know how to explain how I do that. It is a long story. But the way that you can do that is like calling them forth, just doing however you meditate, however you go within and deal with your spirituality. You go within and you call them. Who did this? And then this might take more than one try. You might have to practice at this, and depending on where you are in your practice. So calling them forth. One of the things that I do for ancestors is I have like a handout sheet in spirit, and depending on where they are in time, that handout has a bunch of things that have changed since they left Earth. So I hand that over to them, and I'm like, things are different now. And this is how you're affecting this family member of yours. So the first thing I try to do is explain to them that what they did is having unintended consequences. Because unless you have like a ridiculously powerful and also evil ancestor who's like, fuck these kids, and it just, goes through, like that's a whole other thing. The vast majority of them are not like that. These were just like good intentioned protection spells or well intentioned love spells, but love spells are also curses. Don't do love spells. Talking a lot. So they started out as well-intentioned protection spells, mostly mothers onto daughters. And so one of the things that I first start out with is handing out a sheet that gives like a synopsis of all the things that have changed since they've been on Earth, and explain to them that what they did is having unintended consequences. And then I ask them as politely as I can you please either like modify this or let this person go? And you can do the same thing. You can appeal to them to let you go, that what they did is hurting you. And they may have intended to help, but it's not helping. And, depending on who they are and where they are and how much of them is left, sometimes that's all that's needed for that to lift. So I hope that helps. And then, once you do that, it releases a bunch of people in your family line. And when you do that kind of ancestor work, it doesn't matter if you yourself don't have children. It still has an effect on the next generation because you are still related to people who will procreate. So if you are able to deal with some part of that, then it will not be inherited in the same way. And hopefully you will have taken the sting out of it, and it can go back to being the protection spell that it was intended to be. Because a lot of the time when we're putting protection spells on, we're doing it with fear. You can't do it with fear. Fear is a target. If you're walking around with a bunch of fear, you're walking around with a target. And I am not trying to victim blame with that. I'm trying to explain like how like sometimes people who are predators, they pick up on it, they smell the fear. And it's completely understandable and perfectly natural to be afraid out there because it's a hellscape. But once you take that off, when you are like doing protection spells and stuff, if you don't have fear in there, you just have like a defensive thing, it just works so much better. Because one of my defensive spells is, if you do this, that will happen. So with like protection spells, you don't really want to be like, don't let this happen. I don't want this to happen. You're operating from fear. It's understandable. It's perfectly understandable. I'm not blaming anybody for it. It's a completely human thing. But I found that it didn't work. So once I just accepted that something might happen, even if it's like, statistically unrealistic or unlikely, once I accepted that, okay, somebody could do something, they very well could. Here's what's going to happen. That is a defensive spell. So somebody does something, then this is what happens. The vast majority of people, especially people who want to do harm, they have their own form of like, they're like really suspicious people. They have their own form of spirituality. They have their own form of energy, and they pick up on stuff like that. Superstitious. A lot of thieves, a lot of like criminal people have their own. So If you are able to put like a defensive thing on there, then it makes it look like you're not an easy target. Once I accepted that something is going to happen, and then this is going to happen as a result, pick anything, like whatever. I don't care what you put in there as like what's going to happen as a result. Then you're not an easy target. And by easy, I mean easy for them. I'm not victim blaming at all, because it's nobody's fault. These are assholes. They're choosing to do this. But getting off of their radar does give you a much greater sense of safety. At least it does for me. So that's also like a thing that you can do with some of these ancestors who are like just notoriously assholes. Because there have been a few ancestors for clients, and one in particular on my dad's side of my own, where he just would not stop. You can do your own form of banishment with an ancestor, because be they friends or family, if they're crossing boundaries, they're not helpful. You don't have to honor people who are not honoring you. And an entity who you think that you're working with and they're like not treating you very well, or they're telling you bullshit, you can banish them. You do not have to honor anything that isn't honoring you. And that's another just basic boundary self-defense thing, if that makes sense. All right, so how are we doing? How are we doing, everyone? Are we all here together? Are you guys understanding? Because if you have questions, please let me know, because I've got the screen up. I can see it. All right, yay. So yeah. So I hope I answered that question about ancestors and those curses and stuff, because man, that is a lot of info. I know. If you guys want to record, I think Twyla or George is recording this, and then they're going to be distributed, because that's a thing that I do. I give a lot of information. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah. So then if you want to like watch this later, then they're going to make that available. All right, questions, anything else? Because I also go through stuff really fast. I'm a fast talker. I process really fast. But I would love to get to know you guys and understand the stuff that you guys are going through, because man, I live for this stuff. It's one of my favorite things to do to help people. Like to like get that shit off of people and then watch their life just calm down and get a little bit better. Because that's the other part of like growing as a person, is to realize like you're never gonna make all of the bad stuff not happen. You can just do your best to cope with it better, because shit is always gonna hit the fan. But if you are able to work on yourself and grow as a person, then you'll be better able to meet what comes to you. Because I was raised Catholic, and it's not like you can just turn that off. So the Catholic way of going about stuff is like, shit is going to happen, and shit happens to everybody. So I never understood the Protestant thing, like good things happen to good people. Since when? Since when has that ever been the case? All right. So you did mention superstitions. What would some superstitions cause some curses or bad things to happen? If that's a silly question, you could totally say that. I don't think it's silly, but like some of the things that you expect to happen will totally rise to meet you. And it's not like you're making them happen, but if you expect something to happen, then a lot of stuff will totally like show up and be like, hello. But if you're able to deal with some of those things, like, why do you believe this stuff? Because I'm not one of those fluffy white lighter people where like, oh, if you think positively, only positive things will happen. No, that's bullshit. Please get away from those people. That's marketing. That's all it is marketing. They took like a thing that's been around for thousands of years and then distilled it into this bullshit marketable thing that made billions of dollars, because they told people the easy thing that they wanted to hear. Yeah, the law of attraction is bullshit. As it's marketed in like The Secret or Think and Grow Rich, it's bullshit. It is absolute utter bullshit. Like, it's the surface level. Like they took the thing, like this deep wisdom, and they distilled it down into like sound bites and easy to digest bullshit. And people just took that in, and then they're like, but I'm thinking positively. Why is my husband still hurting me? Because that's not how anything happens. That is just like, that's not how anything works. Your thoughts are not so powerful that you can make racism go away. They are not so powerful that you can make sexism evaporate. You thinking positively will not make your boss stop sexually harassing you. You are not that powerful as a person. You're not going to build a dam in the river of the river of racism and sexism and homophobia that have been going on for centuries. Think of it as a river, as a bunch of people are on that wavelength. And there's a bunch of people who totally believe that stuff. And you are one person trying to deal with your reality, and you're isolated in that. And then when it doesn't work, you blame yourself for it. It's horrible. It's the law of attraction as it's put out in, like the Abraham Hicks material is abusive. In my opinion, I am only speaking for myself. I found that material to be gaslighting. It is abusive. It is victim blaming. And the whole like, oh, you could get like all of this money or all of this success when you're coming from the bottom and then trying to get over here. Like, tell that to a Black trans woman who, like, at any moment could get like hurt just for being herself walking outside. Oh, it's your thoughts that are making that happen to you. Like, she's responsible for homophobia, transphobia, racism, sexism. No, that is not like, this is a thing that I am absolutely passionate about. So that is something that is near and dear to my heart. Like, you cannot blame people for when they get these horrible things happen to them. That is not because of their thoughts. That is because we live in this world. And there's ways to use magic in order to protect ourselves, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work all the time. That doesn't mean your magic protection spell and your positive thinking is going to make sexism and homophobia disappear. It's not. It just isn't. Okay, I missed one. There was a whole thing. I think it was Gray Warren who had like a whole thing, and I was like, I was in the zone. Like, where did it go? It might have been removed. I hope not. All right. Thank you, George. Thank you for clarifying. So, Gray Warren, if you could write that out without the bad language. Come on, George. So, yeah, because I swear a lot. So, as long as you're not attacking anybody, I don't think it should be removed. Anyway, so like those things, like those beliefs can totally like act like a curse, can manifest as a curse in your own system. There were a lot of people that I worked with and worked on who just had some like really self-sabotaging beliefs because, we live in a horrible world, that horrible things happen and good things happen too. Don't, again, I'm not trying to sound like I'm speaking in absolutes. That's just how it sounds. But I absolutely know that the world isn't horrible. It's also amazing and wonderful and loving and great. I personally believe there are more good people than bad people, but the bad people are really loud about it. They are really super loud. But the whole like, your mind is only one aspect of it. Your emotions are another thing, and your physical body is another thing. I always self-sabotage, but that comes from trauma and I'm still working on. Yes, Mama Witch of 2. Yes, that is, dealing with your trauma is a lifelong journey. It is just anybody who is able to like turn around and face those demons, those inner, like not actual demons, but the inner demons, the inner monsters, to give you some advice on that. I have found most of the time the darkness within us, the monsters within, are angry children from when we were small and we got yelled at, we got punished unfairly, we were abused unfairly. And well, it's always unfair. But like, say, you just were a kid and, you asked for something, but, your dad or your mom was having a bad day and they were annoyed and they just snapped at you. That creates a wound. And we all do that. Like I'm a mom too. I've done that. I have made those wounds in my child and I am not proud of it. And we do the best we can with what we have. But those wounds are there. And since we are just babies, we are extremely vulnerable to that. So dealing with those vulnerabilities is really just like, recovering from a dysfunctional childhood. And you may have had amazing parents, they never starved you, they never hit you, but they still messed up, because we all mess up. And we do have to like hold ourselves accountable, hold our parents accountable. We still need to find some measure of peace within it, and that's its own journey. But the whole like spiritual bypassing is a huge thing. You do not go from being completely fucking traumatized to I now forgive these people. There is a wide spectrum of steps that need to be gone through in order to get to the place of forgiveness. And forgiveness, in my opinion, it doesn't make anything okay. It means that you have just released the hold and the pain that event had on you. Like, I have more or less forgiven my parents. And by that, I mean they have no more power over me because I don't give it to them. But I had to go through like a whole bunch of stuff in order to get to that place of where I could totally get an email from my mother that I will not respond to, but it doesn't affect me in the same way that it did before. It'll still make me sad. I will still get frustrated. I will still yell at her in my head, but I don't go into, I hate myself. I'm so stupid. I'm a bad daughter. I can't do anything right. All of that stuff is gone. And I'm very, very grateful that I was able to do that. And I hope for the best that you guys are able to transcend that as well. Like, you get the help that you need. All right, Gray Warren. I was trying to ask, what about those shit you curses you mentioned, especially when not from other humans and that you are just to interfere with you? Entities that are fucking with you, yes. Where the things you've mentioned so far aren't enough to deal with it. I hope that makes sense. I've been trying to come up with the right way to ask about what I mean all class, and I haven't figured out a better way to do it. What? Sorry, I'm yelling at George. I swear, what? Are we not allowed to swear on Discord? Is that not allowed? George, you've known me for a decade. What are we going to do? I've been swearing this entire time. What are you going to do? Are you what are you going to do to me, sir? Take me away in chains? Okay, so entities. So unless you have specific training, because that's Handsome wants to help. So one of the things is, like, if you are not trained in this, do not attempt to do that. Call in backup. Call in somebody who actually does know what they're doing. What do those people look like? They don't have neon signs out their window. Don't go to places that have a neon sign. They are going to, oh, that's another thing we should talk about. The readers, the psychics, the tarot readers who tell you you're cursed and then it's $1,000 to fix it. Those people are frauds. Report them to the authorities, because that's a crime called larceny. So that whole thing, like, curses do not cost an enormous amount of money to lift. I've lifted like ridiculous centuries old curses for like $50. And that was because that's what they had to give me. So what that is, there are some people, most of them are connected to organized crime. And it's really unfortunate because it's mostly women who are doing this. And this is like what these women are expected to do. And so this is like the only form of fraud that in their world that they're allowed to engage in. Whereas the other people are engaged in like bank fraud, construction, scams. So like they're usually part of a larger organization that is dedicated to crime. So you go into this place and it's always a neon sign. Just don't go into the neon. I don't know why the neon sign is the calling card, but especially here in the city of Chicago, if it's a neon palm sign or like a psychic reading and it's a neon sign, don't go in there. Like I think we have a pretty good community of people that we already know here in the Chicagoland community, like the Occult Bookstore, Alchemy Arts, my business with World Tree Healing. There's K Mala Bruja, Char with K Mala Bruja. So there are like people here in this community that will not do that. Like Laura, we saw Laura. Laura is not a fraud. She is amazing. She does excellent work and she knows about curse removal and readings and helping people deal with their bullshit. So stay away from the neon signs. But one of the things that they do is like, okay, so you go in there and you sit down and they, lay out the cards and then they proceed to tell you stuff that sounds really accurate. And it may very well be accurate. These people may actually have some psychic ability. They might actually be able to read you. But 9 times out of 10, they are doing like cold reading. Exactly, cold reading. So they just have like a really, they have like a psychological understanding of like how to read body language because this is what they do. They do it all day. Or they were taught by someone who does it all day. So yeah, the thing is, you sit down, they give you a whole thing, and then they launch into there is some darkness within you. You got it from your mother, and it's been in your family for generations. And it's going to take like 5 sessions for this to be removed. And it's going to be like $1,000, $500, like some exorbitant fee. So they don't really expect that you're going to pay that amount of money. They are just reaching really high to get out of you how much money you actually have. They're like Scientologists in that way. Scientology is a cult, kids. Don't go there. And I will say that in absolute terms, Scientology is a cult. So they will take all of your money and they will ruin your life. Don't go there. So then these frauds, they set the high bar. Yes, those the John Edwards and the Long Island medium, they're doing the same thing. I don't think John Edwards has any psychic ability at all. I think he's just really good at reading people, but that doesn't mean he's talking to the dead. And when I would watch that show, all the dead were saying was hi. What? Hi? And depending on the community that John Edwards was in, like in Boston, he was just throwing out a bunch of Irish names. Come on, dude. So he knows his audience. But yeah, he's not talking to the dead. And also anybody who's doing mediumship like that, like, no, that's a bad luck. So, but the neon sign frauds, so they get you in, they set a high price, but what they really want is for you to tell them how much money you have. And then they want that money. Then they're like, okay, well, you know what? I can give you a deal and I can do it for that amount. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It does not cost that amount of money to deal with a curse. Like it just doesn't. If you've seen and heard the show Psych or any TV show with a fraudulent psychic, the way they figure out details about you from the things you say, that's cold reading. Yes, it is. Like they'll look at your age. They will look at the way you're wearing your clothing. They will see if you're wearing a wedding ring. Are you all dolled up? Are you more casual? They will try to guess where you are in like the financial class, rich or poor or whatever. So they will take superficial details and run with it. And that's essentially what they do. And they're stupid. So like the John Edwards of the world's Long Island Medium, all those other people who are like talking to the dead or doing stuff for the cops. Like, no, don't do that. Like I've never had like a detective or a police officer come to me with like a cold case, and I would tell them no. No, I work in the world of spirit. None of this can be proven. You work in the world of science and facts, and you need to do your job and not take up psychics who are like talking to the or getting in the mind of the criminal, or getting into the mind of the person who was killed. And like Sylvia Brown, when she was on Oprah and told those people that their son was dead, and then it turns out that their son was alive. Fuck those psychics. Fuck them. They are not helpful. They just aren't. They're just not good. I am speaking in absolutes in that case, but that is also my opinion. They're not good. They're not good for you. They're not helpful. They're not giving an accurate representation of spirituality in the way that we as pagans experience them. Because we honor the dead, and we don't go like into various underworlds and start like stuff. Like you want to talk to grandpa, but what if grandpa is in an underworld and you don't have like a passport with the guardian of that underworld? You're not getting in to talk to grandpa. You're just not. All right, don't want to derail the good warning about frauds, but reminder about entities and the fuck you curses. Okay, entities. So unless you are confident in your abilities as a witch or a wizard or magician or whatever you want to call yourself, those are fine. You might need to call in some backup help. Like if you have something that's basically haunting you and fucking with your life, you're going to need to call in somebody. If all of the banishments, the cleansings, the smudging, all of those things, if they haven't worked, and basically like I love the old witch technique of like banging your pots and pans and telling them to fuck off. Like that's my favorite ghost removal. Bad spirit removal is like you just like okay, you put on mom voice or you put on teacher voice and you bang your pots and pans, you get angry and you tell them to get out. Open your windows, open your doors, use a broom and just sweep them out, like get the fuck out, you're not welcome here. And you get mad. So there's like this misunderstanding sometimes with our community where like the spirit world, like everything in there needs to be honored or something, or they need to be respected. Basic boundaries as it is in the human world goes in the spirit world. If something is in your house and it's not supposed to be there, I treat them the same way as if somebody walked into my house and they're not supposed to be here. I will come at them with a bat. I don't care who they are. Like if we haven't met and you haven't gone, like I have a whole thing in my system of like how to get a hold of me. There's a whole protocol within me that if an entity, a deity, a spirit, an ancestor wants to get a hold of me, there's a flag in here that says this, pick up this phone and I will answer it. So I have my own God phone. So if they're not doing that, they're just walking in and like taking over and doing stuff, bang your pots and pans. If that's not working and you've smudged, you've thrown salt, you've done all of the traditional stuff, you've thrown everything that you can at them, then you need to call in professional help. You need to find somebody who's not a fraud, who can totally to like do that. Do help spirits to cross over or just kick them out? Hey man, if you want to help them cross over and you know how to do that, go right ahead. But if you don't know how to do that and you don't want to do that, then kick them out. Like that's basically like somebody going door to door. Like, do you have like money for the ferryman to cover across the river Styx? Like your mom should have given you that. Or like, how the people in the parking lot who are like, my car broke down and I need money for the tow truck. Do you not have insurance that you can call to come and pick you up? No one has ever in their life given money to the tow truck driver. That's at the repair shop. You don't pay the tow truck driver. So it's kind of like the same thing. Like those people who are doing that in the parking lot are also scam artists, and you can tell them to fuck off. But it's like with spirits, you don't have to be the ferryman. You don't have to be the person to help all of these entities. You don't have to if you don't want to. And if it's like taking over a lot of your time or a lot of your life, or they're making it hard for you to live, you can say no. The same way you can say no to people in the real world, you can totally say that in spirit too. Because anything that doesn't honor your wishes or is like respecting boundaries isn't something worth working with. And also like entities that are telling you what you want to hear. That's entities can totally take on the guise of a deity. Like if that entity and that deity, they have enough of an overlap, they could totally take on that guise. And one of my favorite things to do is to arm wrestle them. I know it's Freya, my goddess, my patron goddess, if I can't like defeat her in arm wrestling. But if something is coming at me and it's pretending to be Freya and I challenge it to an arm wrestling game and I beat it, that is not Freya. I can't beat Freya. So like, pushing back. If you are like questioning it, asking it questions that it's telling you answers, giving you bullshit answers, like stuff that your parents should have said. Everything is love. We're here to support you. We're forgiveness. You need to forgive that person who was mean to you and blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit spirit. You don't have to work with them if you don't want to. But that is its own journey, and that takes time to learn how to do, just the same way that doing the same thing with human people, learning who are your friends and who aren't your friends, who shows up and who doesn't when you need them. It's the same thing with the spirit world. Yeah, so that's one of my biggest pet peeves of people who are entertaining entities who are clearly like fucking with their lives and taking it out on their physical world. Like I had this woman who really thought she was talking to an angel, but she was like, well, you know what, if I'm busy and I like don't answer him right away, then I feel horrible and awful, and then I lose things. And I'm like, that's not an angel then. Well, if it's not an angel, then what is it? And I'm like, it's a parasite. It's a ghost. It's a whatever. Banish it. Get that out of your life. Something, if you don't like, the same thing you would tell a guy who's blowing up your phone and in your DMs and won't leave, and you've told him to go away or whatever, or he's asking for money, and it's like you have a mom. And if an entity is doing the same thing or making you feel bad, then, and they're claiming to be an angel or a deity, then they are not who they say they are. And that could also like they can get into your system. They can feed off of you. They could be parasitic. They can feed off of your energy and make you do things or say things or experience things that you wouldn't have otherwise. And you can salt in their face. You could take a cleansing bath. You could come see me and I will tell them to go away. I have no problem. Like the same way I'll tell off your mom, I will totally tell off that entity that's pretending to be an angel. I have no fear of these people. So I just threw a lot at you guys. Let's get more discussion. Where are we at? How are we doing? Oh yeah, it's a lot. My neck is starting to hurt from like talking. Oh my God. This I love you too, Amy. This is fun. I love this stuff. It's great. I live for this. I love helping people. No, what I love to do is I love to help people say no. I love to help people get in touch with their anger. I love helping people get in touch with their rage in a healthy way. I love helping people get in touch with their boundaries and learning boundaries, because I had to learn them the hard way, because I spent a lot of my childhood being confused as fuck. Like I didn't know why everybody was so mad at me. I didn't know why I was doing everything wrong. Autistic, because I'm a girl and I can talk. And I was interested in girl shit. Then they didn't know I was autistic, because that's how that goes. But I am autistic. and I'm super verbal and I'm super sociable, but I also can't read a spreadsheet. And if you say certain things, I'll just stare at you blankly, like I don't know what's going on. But yeah, this is one of the things that like I have figured out a lot for myself, and I have seen how it has gone better for myself, and I do my best to help people learn how to do that in a way that makes sense for them. Doing at it my way may not work, but if I can help you learn your way, then that gives me really good feelings. Like, yay, I helped. Gray Warren says, I'm really amused at you arm wrestling all of these things, and then Freya jokingly, I want to ask if Freya's cats. No, I don't want to talk to this person. I want to ask if Freya's cats beat you at arm wrestling or not. I actually haven't. I've seen her cats, but I've never actually like met them. There was this one time I was doing mission work, and Freya did pull me into her chariot, and it was gigantic, and I saw the back of the cats. But I've also ridden underneath Odin's wolf. Like I traveled somewhere with Odin, and I was like holding on to the bottom of his wolf. And I've crossed the Bifrost with Heimdall and stuff like that. So yeah, I wouldn't challenge those cats. Like, those cats are under. Like I don't even like. Are they even anthropomorphized? I know. Okay. In the lore, I don't know if they have names, but I think like there was a later story where they said they had their names, but I don't remember what those were. But it sounded like an onomatopoeia for meow, but that's the same thing in Egyptian. Actually, it's really funny. But yeah, challenging stuff is what I do best. I don't really understand most of this stuff, but it's been an interesting listen regardless. I hear you. I threw a lot at you guys. You guys totally took it in stride. It's okay if stuff went over your head. That's okay. We are where we are. But I hope to at least have been entertaining. So we've got about 9 minutes left. It's 5:21. So if we want to have a discussion, that would be great. Shared what I can. George, if you want to chime in here about stuff, because yes, Julia, I am very entertaining. I'm a delight. Hire me for a party. So, but George is also really good at stuff. But yeah, like if you wanted to do curse removal or get help with stuff, like contacting the people who run Pagan Pride, we can totally help you get in touch with that. You don't have to go to the people with the neon signs. So yeah, if you want to like talking to people who are in the community, who are in like the witchy spiritual community, you are far less likely to get a fraud. Yeah. But that's about what I've got. My throat is starting to hurt. I have talked a lot. So if you guys have questions, throw them in here and I will do my best to answer them. My water is right here, George. My main method of spiritual and magical practice is called Sather. And Sather is basically Norse magic. It is the magic of the Scandinavians' pre-Christian colonization. And Sather just basically translates to witchcraft. And like I am a priestess of the goddess Freya, and I am a heathen. I believe in worship and work with and do rituals with and stuff with the Norse gods. Mostly Freya. I have worked with Odin, Freyr, Heimdall, Tyr, Thor, Iduna, Frigg. So pretty much the entire Norse pantheon I've worked with in one way or another. Loki's a fun one. If you want your life turned upside down and to learn some harsh truths about yourself, that's always fun. As the tricksters always will do. They're always great at like, don't push Loki onto people. I'm not. I am so not. Loki speaks for himself. Oh, did you guys watch the debate? That fly that landed on Mike Pence's head? That was Loki. There is a whole story of Loki turning into a fly and fucking stuff up. That was Loki. That was definitely Loki. Also, if you guys want to friend me on Facebook, I am Megan Hamilton on Facebook. If you want to like World Tree Healing on Facebook, I am currently locked out of our Instagram account and I haven't figured out how to recover it yet. I'm working on it. But we do have an Instagram account that I can't remember the password to and haven't been able to reset. But we are pretty active on Facebook. That's how you can get a hold of us. It's attached to my phone. So if you send us a message, I will respond. My partner is Eric. He is also doing magical training. I teach. So if you want to learn witchcraft, I can teach you witchcraft, but in like the Sather kind. Freya is always looking for followers if you want to do that. So also donate to Pagan Pride. We do this for free, but it's not free to run. 100 of me on Facebook. Okay, my picture on Facebook is of a painting. So I'm also an artist. So the painting is a person. It's a lady. I was trying to copy one of the artists. I can't, what is it? He's got like a complicated Italian name. Thank you. Yes, that is probably me. Hold on, let me click on that and see if that's me. I am looking. I don't want it to be just dead space. Yes, that is me. That is me. So if you guys want to friend me on Facebook, that is my link. Is it just easy like that? You just learn witchcraft from someone. I don't mean to sound disrespectful. I flat out don't know. You know what? That's the other thing. You can absolutely learn witchcraft from people, and that is actually the better way to do it, in my opinion. You can totally like learn how to do stuff from books and watching YouTube videos and reading articles, but in order to really learn in advance, you do need to have like a flesh and blood teacher who is mostly, I am kind of crazy, but I am mostly sane, or at least I know where I'm crazy. Does that mean I'm still crazy? Anyway, so having a flesh and blood teacher to help you, to like check you, to like, you know, learn stuff like that it helped me. Like I was doing book stuff. I was solitary for a really long time, and I just was not advancing the way that I wanted to. And then I found my flesh and blood teacher, and George is an extremely good teacher. He really knows his stuff, and it's the same way, like the same way you would want someone to help you learn how to read, you also want someone to help you learn how to do witchcraft. Yes, so I will get to my Facebook page soon. I'm glad to make your day. Yay, I'm so happy. I'm glad that you guys got a lot of this. It looks like there's 16 people in here. That's amazing. That's really, really good. But yeah, so yeah, it's going on 5:30, and it was really nice to meet you guys. I hope you learned something about curses and dealing with stuff, and don't go to frauds, and it's okay to say no, and beat your pots and pans if something is in your house that you don't want it to be in there. Yay! Thank you, Deirdre. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Awesome. Yeah, I like it because this is why I don't do like, I don't, okay, so this works for a lot of people. It doesn't work for me. I will just sit here and talk, like pick a topic, I sit here and talk. I have nothing planned. I just have knowledge, and I try to like organize stuff. My brain don't organize. I just talk. Like I have despite being autistic, I have an extremely good memory. I can go to the store and I could get everything that I need and forget nothing until I do. But like try to have an organized talk. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna do this. That is madness. I don't know how anybody is able to do that. But I can keep it in my mind of the things that I need to cover, and I feel like I covered everything. So yeah, I'm glad you guys got something out of it. That's amazing. So it is now 5:30. Yay, we got through it. Yay, Pagan Pride 2020. Oh my God. I hope that next year we can be together. That would be amazing. And this plague upon the land will be done if, our government gets its shit together. But all right. It was good to see you guys. I'm gonna head out. Bye.